Bloom Apartments brings you an exceptional offer. For a limited time, get 2 months free, plus their unique all-inclusive package. Not bad for finding your secret garden in the heart of Gatineau. Visit bloomapartments.com.
Great talk and good company. Every morning, Elias Makos, CJAD 800.
Well, the Canadian military is creating a space division. There's been rumblings about it since 2019. But now we have some official news. Let's hear more about it from the Director-General for Space himself. Brigadier-General Mike Adamson is on the line, commander of the Canadian Space Division. Brigadier-General, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
So listen, I just want to, I have something here. Is it actually called 3 Canadian Space Division, or is that something from a press release? What is it actually being called?
It is the 3 Canadian Space Division, and that's just following our numerical nomenclature. Within the Air Force, we have a couple of divisions. We have 1 Canadian Air Division, 2 Canadian Air Division, and of course, logically, 3 Canadian Space Division was the next one to be formed. Okay,
wonderful. Now, listen, it's easy for me to get excited about anything to do with space, right? But then, of course, I think of space and then military or space and armed forces, and I say to myself, I don't know if I'm as excited here. How would you describe your feelings about this decision, this move for a Canadian Space Division?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's actually one that we fielded a couple different times because obviously people want to understand, why the military, why space, and I think we have to go back, to the very beginning, the usage of space. Back when in the Cold War, there was the space race between Russia and the United States, and really that competition between those two nations, decades ago, was really a manifestation of the Cold War efforts. And so the militarization of space is really just an acknowledgement of the fact that there are some capabilities supporting military operations that are in space, the same way that there are, capabilities that are supporting commercial and civilian operations in space. We can use the GPS constellation, for instance, that is leveraged by people around the world for any number of different things, but really was a U.S. Department of Defense effort in order to provide, accurate positioning for equipment and personnel. So, to that end, I think there is, an element of that military use of space. In that question, I think what people are asking or a little more interested in is differentiating between militarization and weaponization of space. And certainly from a Canadian context, that's not an effort that we're looking to undertake at all. Weapons in space, attacking or defending against those kinds of things is certainly not what we're looking at. We're more concerned as an organization with understanding what's going on in space, and certainly there are militaries around the world that do that. So understanding what's happening in space, from tracking of objects to debris, to understanding who is doing what, and then making sure that we remain assured access to that domain in order to support all of the different things within the Canadian societal context that rely on space, whether that be first responders or banking systems or cellular communications or what have you. Canadian society relies on space on a daily basis for so much of what we do. And part of what we're doing is to understand what's going on in the domain and then make sure we can protect and defend those interests.
And would you say this decision, this move, is reactive or proactive? Obviously, I can look back a few years back in the U.S. creating their Space Force. Other countries have done a move that's similar to Canada's here. So how would you describe it, proactive or reactive?
It's a little bit of both. It's evolutionary. I think, when we started, sort of exploring whether or not we would need an office within the Canadian Armed Forces to understand what space was about, that continued to evolve as we became increasingly reliant on a lot of those capabilities, like I said, for communications or navigation or what have you. So I think there's just been a general sort of acknowledgement of the increasing importance amongst all nations of the earth. But we see that, manifest with the United States Space Force, for instance, which is obviously the big, most visible object or obvious example of that. But our allies, and other nations and friends and partners are all sort of having this sort of same evolutionary process where they understand that the domain is increasingly important to all sorts of aspects of living, whether that be societal, military, or what have you. And it just makes sense to have an organization that is going to be concentrating on the domain, looking at what's happening in the domain, and then making sure that we're able to respond and act in that domain. So it's not necessarily reactive to to what's going on in the U.S. or our friends and allies, but it is reactive to a certain extent to the fact that we are increasingly reliant on those capabilities and enablers, and getting ahead of it from a proactive sense. But it's evolutionary.
We're with Brigadier-General Mike Adamson, commander of the Canadian Space Division, just announced. He's also Director-General for Space. So let's talk about cost and money. I am told on good authority space is expensive. So where is the money coming for Canada's armed forces to have a space division? Is it already budgeted, or is there new money coming for this?
There is no new money coming. I mean, at the moment, as we've been telling people, the work that we're doing, this week as opposed to what we did last week doesn't change at all. And really, from a personnel standpoint, within the national defense, the most recently National Defense Policy, Strong, Secure, and Engaged, it was identified that we would have some marginal increase in personnel in order to support our mission as we're going forward. But really, it doesn't come with any significant increase in costs at all. We are not in the business at the moment of launching rockets and vehicles into space from a Canadian Forces perspective. So that really is not part of what we're concerned with. And like I said, from a personnel standpoint, we're about 175 strong in terms of personnel, military and civilian, with some marginal growth going over the next couple of years to make sure that we're able to carry out our mandate. But no significant increases or changes in costs from where we were.
What's the most exciting thing about this announcement?
I think for us, it represents, as a DG, a Director General, that sort of has a connotation of administrative or bureaucratic efforts. I think standing up the Space Division is really an acknowledgement of the fact that this is a dynamic and evolving operational role and domain for the Canadian Forces. And for us, it really is, it's quite exciting to acknowledge that. And it aligns us with a lot with what our allies and our friends and partners are doing as well. Certainly when I talk to our colleagues in the U.S. or Australia or the U.K. or what have you, they're all undertaking similar efforts, and it is such a dynamic and exciting environment to be working in. And from our perspective, we're just really thrilled with the name change, but it also what that represents to us in terms of the direction that we're going to go and how we're going to do it.
I know recruitment has been an issue for many armed forces among Western nations, and Canada is no exception. Do you feel this having a real deal Canadian Space Division could foster some recruitment from peoples that sometimes would not consider Canada's armed forces?
I would hope so. Actually, I'm quite amazed at internally to the Canadian military just how many people are interested in joining this organization. We take folks from across Army, Air Force, and Navy to come and work within our organization, doing everything from orbital analysis and space engineering and conjunction analysis and intelligence analysis and those kinds of things. So, I would hope that enthusiasm and that excitement would certainly be communicated out to the Canadian public. Certainly there is a future within our organization for folks that are interested in that kind of work. And I'm hoping that would foster an excitement and perhaps cause folks to consider employment within the Canadian Armed Forces.
Well, where will the most of the work be done? Will you have like a primary base for the Canadian Space Division?
Well, our Director General ship that has now become the Space Division was really headquartered out of two main locations in Ottawa, at our main Carling campus headquarters location, and then at a secondary building co-located with our Operations Command. And we're just going to maintain those spaces there. So we've got basically the bulk of our efforts are here in Ottawa, but we do have folks that are working with our allies in positions both in the United States and over in NATO, working within their their space offices. So from an exchange and liaison perspective, probably 35 to 40 folks that are working outside of Canada in those kinds of options.
Brigadier-General Mike Adamson.